Hey guys, Liana here. Yes, we're gonna talk about the new Twitter policy changes. Its plan, as you can see in this headline, to make its community less abusive. And I was inspired to do this video by David Auerbach, and I respect the crap out of this guy. As far as I'm concerned, he's one of the best tech writers writing today. His insights are always thought-provoking, and he's one of the few people that I catch myself, if I disagree with him on something, a few days later, a week later, or something like that, it's like, you know what, David was right. So it's rare that happens to me. It is rare, because I am a genius. That was a joke. But I really respect his writing, and I think that if he's tackling this subject, then it's worthy of discussion, because I agree with him about his comments on Twitter, mainly that, you know, it's a long overdue fix, but it doesn't go far enough in terms of improving what's wrong with Twitter, because Twitter's issues are, as he said in previous articles, connected to this blurring of the lines between a private conversation and a public conversation, and people having a hard time dealing with that and differentiating between what is a free-for-all conversation and what is not. Now, my personal approach to Twitter is that I see it as talking to someone in a mall or an amusement park or something like that. You know those situations, I don't know if you've been here, and you're talking around with your friends and you drop an F-bomb. It's like, oh, fuck this. And somebody walks by out of the blue and goes, "Do you mind? My kids are here." And it's like, okay, well, your kids are lined up for the Jurassic Park ride, which might not be a good idea, because it's gonna be scary, but, you know, sorry, I don't deliberately swear around kids. That is sort of my mental allegory, for lack of a better term, for Twitter. That's how I decide whether I want something to be on Twitter or not on Twitter. I assume things I put on Twitter are public, which is why I don't like deleting tweets. It drives me crazy when I get put in a situation where people are like, you should really delete that tweet. Why? Everything's archived up the wazoo. Deleting something just makes me look guilty. I said it. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. But I really don't like the idea of removing it, because, you know, people are going to find that, and people are going to infer from it what they want, and deleting it is not going to change it. Somebody's already screen grabbed it, and it's going to be flung back in your face ad nauseum through, you know, JPEG image for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not. And that, to me, is the biggest issue with Twitter, is that Twitter doesn't exist in isolation. And this is something that Twitter and Reddit and Facebook and all of these competing social networks are unwilling to really address head on. And think of it as, you know, Twitter is not a world. Twitter is not a planet. Twitter is simply a continent on that planet, or even a country. Like, it's really close neighbors with Facebook. I have my Twitter configured that all my stuff pushes to Facebook, because I can't stand Facebook. And I personally, for the record, find Facebook far more depressing and far more of a time sink and far nastier than Twitter, because I realized very quickly, if someone's going to be an asshole on Twitter, they've got to do it in 140 characters or write a twit longer that I probably won't read. Because if somebody sends me a twit longer, if it's not someone I know personally, I will usually not read it. If someone's an exceptionally nice person and they're a fan, I'll read their twit longer. But normally, twit longers are just full of judgmental garbage that completely miss the point. And that's Twitter's issue in a nutshell, isn't it? People completely missing the point. And that is a structural issue with something that is conversational in 140 characters. And my massive pet peeve with Twitter is that Twitter came to prominence because it was a place for news, right? Twitter has transformed the way we interact with global political issues, with the way we interact with entertainment, and some companies are absolutely brilliant at harnessing that. I mean, you know, NBC's The Voice is brilliant on Twitter. They've incorporated it into their show so that they can get, you know, same-day results without using telephone lines. They have this really cool instant save feature, which isn't perfect, but you know, it's a very cool reason to make results shows relevant. Having that viewer control. It's brilliant. It's an amazing way of harnessing the beast. No matter what you think about karaoke shows, I'm partial to it because my cat Momo, The Voice is his favorite show because he loves music. And he especially loves those big voice diva songs. Like Adele. He loves Adele. And so he loves The Voice. He sits on me and just purrs and makes his little happy honking noise. And so I am partial to The Voice. I am. And I think Blake Shelton is funny as crap. And I love Christina Aguilera. But that does not bias me if their Twitter sucked. Their Twitter stuff sucked early on. And I mean, their contestants, you're hearing it more and more on the show. The contestants are getting really beat up by the amount of, you know, hate, or I think it was Cameron Stewart, who's a comic book artist, who came up with the idea of the unfan, that there is someone who will follow everything you do just to shit on it. And that is an unfan. You know, that person who will wait in line for 45 minutes to tell you you suck and will get very angry if you block them because they have a God-given right to tell you you suck. You know, people like that, these unfans. And it's messing with these kids because some of these kids on The Voice are like 16, 17 years old. It's crazy. I think their cutoff is 16 because I'm sure people would put their little kids up there if they could. I don't know if I could do that to my kid. I don't know that I could say no to my kid if they wanted to try that. But wow, that is a heck of a thing to go to in adolescence. And I'm amazed at how well these kids handle the pressure. Because it's a lot. And thank God I didn't have Twitter when I was a teenager. Because, wow, you know, I thought the constant phone calls of people yelling at me because of some sort of stupid rumor were bad. I can't imagine what high school would have been like for me if people had been able to bombard me with stuff after school hours on Twitter. Because that's the thing, right? The thing about school is you need a demarcation between school life and home life. And there's that, you know, differentiation again that David mentioned, the idea that there has to be a differentiation between public and private life. And I think this is an issue that's going beyond Twitter at this point because people put their fucking lives on social networks. And then we have reality TV shows. And there's this belief now that's going around that video evidence is the whole story. If you see something on videotape, well, it's cut and dried. It must be, you know, accurate. It must be the whole story. And these things fly like wildfire around things like Twitter and Facebook. And sometimes it is. Sometimes video evidence can be very powerful, especially when it's about refuting a narrative. But in other times, and I have been subjected to this, other times it's very easy to misframe video stuff to make it seem way worse than it actually is. And I mean, the issue for me was when someone who I have since talked to, and we kind of buried the hatchet, and he's going through a really rough time right now. So please do not go after this person if you know who I'm talking about. This is about the instance, not the person. Please do not, okay? That's not what this is about. I have had this conversation with him as well, because he was good enough to actually be willing to have a conversation. Not everyone is. So credit to him there. Okay, credit where credit's due, if you know who I'm talking about. But it was an online tabloid, and they put up this video of me that claimed it was me confessing to inflating review scores. Now, what I was actually doing is riffing on a Chris Rock bit. And one of the things that Chris Rock does is hyperbole, right? Because kind of maybe sort of isn't funny. Making this way out there statement is funny. And so I was riffing on his "I love hip-hop music, but I'm tired of defending it" bit. And for me it was, "I love video games, but I'm tired of defending them." That was the context. But even posting the whole video, the way the article was framed, people were still convinced that it was truth wrapped in a joke, as opposed to something that was just hyperbole for the sake of humor. People do that. I don't agree in, outright lying in jokes. Well, sometimes. I mean, I was doing a thing the other day about offense, and I was saying some things that, I don't necessarily believe just to provoke, because the point is, even the most trivial things can invoke offense on the internet. I don't actually like mustard that much, okay? I don't dislike mustard, but I don't like mustard that much, for instance, And so sometimes you do overemphasize a point for humor. And I think that needs to be okay. Like, it needs to be understood. And I think we've sort of lost this understanding outside of Twitter, because I think in general media has become polarized. And I'm going to hold that point for a minute so I can finish what I was saying. I think we need to understand that things like hyperbole, satire, irony, sarcasm, these are all things that people employ when they're not taking things seriously, and people really, really need that right, even in public, to not take things terribly seriously. There's only so much seriousness you can handle. And the older you get, I found, at least the older I have gotten, the more I am unable to take things terribly seriously, because it would just become overwhelming. The more responsibility you get, and the more pressure that's on you, and the more pressure there is to deliver on timelines and deadlines, you can't get emotionally involved in every, the Yiddish word is broigus, like feud on the internet, right? You can't. And I was bombarded by people angry at me because I made a video recently in frustration, because I had been absolutely bombarded by people asking me what I thought about an issue, and I really didn't feel like they were prepared to hear an honest opinion. And that opinion was, I really have no opinion. I don't feel like I know enough about what went down. And then we went back to, there's video evidence, here! And I know people are using my account to try to signal boost their stuff, and that becomes a difficult problem for me. Because what I often do when I feel like somebody's just trying to signal boost is I just ignore it. I don't call any attention to it. But that takes a humongous amount of self-control, right? And self-control is something that a lot of people lack. And Twitter, used properly and used sanely and used kindly, requires the very self-control that takes away the fun of something as immediate as Twitter. The immediacy of Twitter, it's not so fun if you don't get that instant gratification. The entire point is it's immediate. News is immediate. Opinion is immediate. Commentary is immediate. Sports results are immediate. Show spoilers are immediate, right? And spoilers are something else that drives me crazy that is a topic for another day. But basically, my issue with spoilers is that people have stretched the definition of spoiler so that it's not about spoilers anymore. It's about any descriptive plot detail in an episode. But I mean, the thing about Twitter is if, you know, like for instance, The Walking Dead, I don't watch The Walking Dead regularly. I don't watch it right when it's on. I'm not paying for AMC for one show, right? Same thing with me in Game of Thrones. I'm not paying for HBO for one show. So I just don't read the Twitter feeds while Walking Dead or Game of Thrones is on. I just don't. And that's because I know that there's going to be spoilers and people are going to go, oh my god, at things. And, you know, there's certain shows I tweet about because I like them and I want them to do well. Shows like The Flash, things like that. I try very hard to avoid show spoilers in my comments because, you know, I understand some people flat out tell me I'm you know, not at home right now, I'm going to watch it later. It's like, all right, fine. If somebody tells me that, I'll be a little bit more careful. But it's amazing how many shows suffer from people just not knowing what they're on. I mean, a show I thought was amazing, Agent Carter, people didn't know it was on because it was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s time slot, right? And people, I guess, thought it was the same thing. They didn't know it was a different show. And it's a very different audience. It's, believe it or not, it's still a Marvel property. But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. bores me to tears, but Agent Carter is I love the show. I love, what's her name, Haley Atwell? I think she's just amazing. And so these are the things that Twitter is very good for. And I think it's important when dealing with a social network like Twitter, what the hell happened there? To deal the good with the bad, to acknowledge that it's not all bad because like people are on it. If it was a horrible service, people wouldn't be on it. But the thing that I think, come on, browser, the thing that I find frustrating about this whole we're improving Twitter debate, or not debate, because they're really not taking, you know, there's no dialogue going on between Twitter and its users, really. Twitter is seeing stuff, but they don't say where it's coming from. There's no way to contact Twitter. You know, you can use the Twitter hashtag, but it never responds. It's so funny that the account for the service you're using doesn't respond to tweets. Irony of Twitter right there. And I mean, there's a whole list in this article about various celebrities that have quit Twitter because of various things. I didn't know, sorry, that was a tea break. I didn't know Lena Dunham quit Twitter. That's very interesting. You know, Louis C.K. quit because he says it didn't make me feel good, it made me feel bad instead. That's what a CEO is worried about, right? Because if Twitter was actually concerned about the violent threats, which is what they've chosen to focus on, they would have done something a long time ago. And this is just me being personal for a minute. I have nothing to back this up. When I get a violent threat on Twitter, and it's very rare, it's very rare, you know, I normally go, whatever. Because it's usually somebody being ignorant. Now, I don't like violent rhetoric on Twitter. Absolutely not. I hope that this new Twitter policy that filters out violent language takes out things like go die in a fire I cannot stand that phrase. I think it is absolutely dehumanizing. And I like the fact that the new direct message from anyone is opt-in. I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I thought about turning it on because there are some people I don't necessarily want to follow, but I would prefer to have a private conversation with them. Unfortunately, too many people abuse the direct message privilege, and it's nice to be able to just unfollow them to get that to stop. Because people have a bad habit of screen grabbing pieces of a direct message conversation. A big thing Twitter could do with direct message is not make the direct messages disappear if someone blocks you. That would be great. Because if someone blocks you because they're trying to hide shenanigans, you can't prove the shenanigans because that stuff is all gone. You know, Twitter makes it very easy to harass people by going after their character. And I think that's a much bigger issue with Twitter than the death threats. I personally think if someone's going to make a credible death threat, it should be out in public in a medium that is trackable. It's better that they get caught, right? It's scary for the person involved, but in terms of greater good for society, it's better that these people make the threats in a public forum that can be caught and seen, and they can't deny they did it. I mean, it's a good policing tool if somebody's going to be stupid enough to make a credible threat against you in a public forum that can be documented easily, right? Like, that's the stupidest threat utterer on the planet. You're going to get caught. Unless, of course, you're using an anonymous account. And this is where I start going, okay, it's a good start, Twitter, but doesn't go far enough in that they're limiting the reach of, you know, what we call egg accounts, that people who just take out an account and they don't even bother to put a picture up, and that was the first bit of advice I got about using Twitter. Make sure you have a picture, because otherwise people won't take you seriously. It's like, all right, fine. And it's true. Egg accounts, I don't really give much credit to. But egg accounts, apparently the age of the account is going to factor in now to how Twitter deals with harassment complaints. But the thing that Twitter is doing absolutely nothing about, and I don't envy them on this one because it's a difficult thing, but that Twitter is a platform for rampant defamation. Rampant defamation. You know, CEOs get attacked personally of companies. People spread rumors about them. They're usually not true, or they're usually trumped up. I mean, people use Twitter when, you know, I was announced as joining the Escapist team. I haven't even written anything. My first thing for the Escapist is a big 4-part series, and it's taking a while because it involved a lot of research. It's actual news gathering as opposed to regurgitating a press release, and so it's taking a little longer. But people have already, you know, sneered at my previous accomplishments, predicted doom for the website, like horrible, horrible stuff. Not very many positives came my way from within the video game industry, which I found very interesting. People are way, way more inclined to use Twitter to dump on each other in gaming than they are to say, hey, great job. And that's not something Twitter can do anything about in that case. The defamation, however, the outright defamation, for instance, people calling me transphobic because of one comment that somebody said they knew I didn't mean anything, but the statement is a problem in and of itself. Well, guys, if you know I don't mean anything, stop calling me transphobic. Talk to me about the specific statement. Explain it to me. Because as much as I feel bad and I'm sorry I hurt somebody's feelings, I still don't understand the issue. You failed to educate me because you were too busy trying to drag my name through the fucking mud. And that's the problem when people are going around going, this person is racist, or this person is transphobic, or this person is homophobic, or misogynist, or all these things that can cause damage to someone getting employment. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the stories about shame culture. You know, the thing that scares me about social networks the most is not that somebody's going to come after me violently. That is not my biggest fear with social networking. My biggest fear about services like Twitter and Reddit and things like that, where people don't have to use their real names and they can hide their agendas because they don't have to show their face, is that I am very afraid that my upward mobility and employment opportunities are being negatively affected by rumors that just get way out of control. That's my biggest fear about Twitter, not the violent stuff. And I think that if you sort of took a poll of Twitter users, I think people are much more concerned about their reputation. Because let me tell you, something like that gets out, it is impossible to contain it. You can repeat yourself over and over and over and over again. It still spreads. Because let's face it, it jumps from service to service, right? It jumps off Twitter, ends up on Reddit, or, you know, actually, no, I won't say, heaven forbid, 4chan or 8chan, because you know what? Reddit has gotten worse than the Chan boards. Because the Chan boards are what they are. Reddit has this aura of respectability because it looks more professional, and there's a lot more like Ask Me Anythings and things like that on Reddit than there are on the Chan boards. You know, Reddit is seen like some sort of social club, whereas as the Chan boards are seen as this dive bar. Chan is what it is. Reddit is in this in-between stage that makes it, to me, more toxic to the reputations of professionals. And it jumps from Twitter to Reddit, and then people do their little strategizing on Facebook, and they decide what the message is going to be that they're going to attack based on. And, you know, people can see the planning, the organization, the collusion, for lack of a better term. But Twitter doesn't care about that. Twitter only cares about what happens on its service. So there's no way to send something to Twitter that goes, look, they planned this, you know, brigade of me on Reddit and then use Twitter to do it. They're basically, you know, for lack of a better term, crossing state lines to get away with things. And anybody anybody running one of these services should know that's a reality. But right now, structurally, there's no way to incorporate that into a harassment complaint on Twitter. And there have been some nasty things done in that regard. And the other way people skirt harassment, I'm not harassing, is that you can say stop it, 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 as often as you want. If they don't see it, they just go, well, I didn't know. One person actually said, well, I forgot you said you wanted to be left alone. Well, how easy? How easy to not identify as somebody who is haranguing someone. That is harassment. That is the textbook definition of harassment. When you say stop and someone continues for whatever reason, it is harassment. Because harassment is a pattern of unwanted contact. If you tell someone to knock it off and they don't, it's harassment. Easy. But that definition is useless if someone can just go, oh, I forgot. And then they harass you for months. And they block you so they can't see you going, stop it, stop it, stop it. You know, people harass behind blocks. There's this indirect trashing of people's reputations that goes on, and the block bots, which I think Twitter should absolutely get rid of because they are used as a harassment tool. The block bots are used to bully people into being too afraid to dissent or too afraid to follow people strictly for information purposes, even if you don't agree with them. And that is harboring someone's that is hindering, sorry, not harboring, hindering someone's freedom of experience on Twitter. But that's still okay. Why is there third-party software allowed to be uploaded to Twitter without any sort of checks on it? Why isn't this stuff approved before it goes up? Like, and if Twitter's approving mass blocking tools, that's nuts. Like, if Twitter thinks their service is so bad that they have to implement mass blocking tools that are not regulated by Twitter, well, why aren't they fixing their service instead of allowing this third-party software to go on? Because people can inject anything they want into these tools. These tools self-update, and people are manually adding people to lists. And I doubt they're relisting the thing with Twitter every single time. Twitter is not watching this software, so it is very easy for the person who created the bot, or someone who has hacked their system or hacked their code, to go in there, put malicious software into something that's already in use in Twitter, and then when that refresh comes up to add the newest thing it blocks, out goes the virus. It's so simple. And so, to me, this response from Twitter is not even the tip of the iceberg. It's shaving, like, bits off the sides of the tip of the iceberg. And it's not a really, truly, it's not a soul-searching moment for Twitter. This is a Band-Aid. And I do like that they're making a difference between passionate political speech and harassment. That's important. But there's more to it. There is nefarious stuff going on Twitter. And like I said, I don't know if they can stop it. But stuff like third-party software being allowed, that absolutely can be stopped. Absolutely. And I think that's a good place to start. But I also think that they need to make actions that affect Twitter that have happened on other services relevant to a harassment complaint. Because otherwise, you can't, like, okay, 200 people bombarded me. How do you report that to Twitter? How? How do you... It is torturous to collect screen grabs of harassment to submit. I don't even do it anymore. Because first of all, no one cares. Everyone just poo-poos it, like basically you asked for it, is what I get. And also, every time I opened up my cell phone, it was this collection of screen grabs of unpleasantness. I mean, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to subject myself to that. I'm just going to accept that a certain level of abuse is the cost of doing business on Twitter. And I have to step away from it every so often when it gets too much. That's the reality for most people who use Twitter for business purposes, using an identifiable identity that is, persistent across the internet. So that's sort of my take on the whole thing. I'm really concerned that Twitter is just allowing defamation to continue, because that's really, what's the point of being alive and being, because if you can't get a job, you can't stay healthy. Your mental health deteriorates, your physical health deteriorates. And so there are a lot of people whose lives have been ruined by Twitter who cannot find employment because of shaming campaigns. It's probably going to take somebody suing Twitter for allowing that to happen and having the case stick for Twitter to do anything about that. And that's very sad, because I think if they actually were concerned about abuse on, if they actually did believe in what it says here, we suck at dealing with abuse and trolls on the platform, they'd be proactive about this and not wait for something to happen. Because big names, like they've said, quitting the service, that doesn't bode well for Twitter's stock price. Okay, guys, hope you found this informative. Hope you decide not to be an asshole if you didn't like it, because I'm really sick of that. And, appreciate the respectful, constructive feedback. For those of you who just want to tell me I suck, fuck off